Hey, it is Zennial Gamer, and today's video we're going to be working in the optimizer and talking about rune cleanup. But before we jump to the video, your first 3 chances to win entries into the Transcendent Scroll giveaway are now. So pick any natural 4 or 5 star monster, the monster, not the family, and suggest some changes to it for the next balance patch. The idea is that the changes should make the monster fun, maybe specifically counter something in the current meta, but still be balanced and not like crazy OP, just as long as the monster itself will have its own counters. And there will be 2 more entries to be found throughout this video. With that said, let's jump into it. Hey, it's Zennial Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about rune cleanup. So to begin with, to me there's 2 times to do it. One is when your rune count is getting really high, like anything over 600. Since we have the max of 700, I feel like anything over 600 means you should do a rune cleanup, because you want to have enough time. You want to be able to farm and not like be forced to do it on a day when you don't have time. The other time to do it is right after you've just done a big FRR, like a free rune removal. And the reason for that is because most of the time, if you've done a big FRR, what you've probably done is cycled better runes onto your monsters in place of worse runes. And so now your inventory is kind of cluttered with some crappy runes. And as we're progressing through the game and our standards for runes are continually going up, those runes become runes that we're less likely to use in the future. But if you don't know exactly where your rune standards are, the first thing I like to do is just kind of scroll through the first several pages and see about where, usually like my top 50 monsters, what's the efficiency level? And I can see that my top 50 monsters are all above 95%. Now, big disclaimer, efficiency is not the be-all end-all. Rauk, Sophia, Talia, these are all my PvE monsters, and they do, like if you've seen in my other videos, my 25, 30-second farming teams, and they're all in the 88% range. Katarina, she's another one of my most reliable Siege and Guild War monsters, and she's 88%. So the point is that efficiency is not the be-all end-all. But depending on which monsters you're using and how you're using them, your Fran, who's super stat hungry, she's going to be up in the top end of the spectrum of efficiency. Even Mina, with no crit rate, I've still got her at 99% because she's pretty stat hungry. I use efficiency as a guideline, but not as the only determining factor. Anyway, with that said, we've got an idea right now that any new monster I rune is most likely going to be over 95% efficiency, because typically I don't rune new monsters unless they're going to crack that top 50 range. Any older monster that I'm re-runing, I'm probably trying to boost them to above 95% to get them into that top 50 range. Now, a 95% efficiency monster means it's an average of all the runes. So let's take a look at Perna. I haven't updated my Perna in forever. At one point, Perna was like on my 2nd page. Now all the way down. But if we look at Perna's runes, we see there's an 89% slot 5 that could totally be updated. There's a 91% slot 6, but then that's boosted up by 103% and some high 90% runes. So what we know is that to get to a 95% average, we're usually going to be looking at a bunch of runes that are between 90 and 100%. So as I go through my cleanup, my floor now is probably going to be runes that are going to crack that 90 to 92% range, and I'm going to be looking to have mostly runes that can get to over 98 to 102%. If you've seen my rune potential video, and I'll try and remember to put an info card here, it talks about how you assess what a rune can become once you've fully gemmed and grinded it. So I gave the general percentages, but then understand also that I'm going to hold some runes to a higher standard than others. For example, I don't use that many energy runes, particularly on PvP monsters, so my standards for energy are going to be higher. I use a lot of rage and swift and violent runes, so my standards are going to be a little bit lower. So maybe if I'm looking for 92% as a general floor, maybe my energy runes need to be 95, but my violent runes are okay if they're 90. And then also understand that your slots 4 and 6 especially, and to a lesser extent slot 2, are more difficult to get. Here we go. As a matter of fact, there's a graph in here that shows you, we can look at our slot amount, and you see that I have more slots 1, 3, and 5 than anything, which is to be expected, but I have less slot 6 than anything, and slot 4 is close to the same, slot 2 is a little bit higher. Why? Because slot 6 really only has, I was going to say 3 keepable runes, which is HP, defense, and attack. Of course, you would keep resistance and accuracy if you had a really good one. Slot 4, you would keep the HP, attack, and defense, but you also keep crit damage. And then slot 2, same deal, but you also keep speed. So slot 6 is harder to get because other than the resistance and accuracy, of which most of us have very few good ones, there are just fewer runes to keep. Slot 5 is the only rune that you could actually grind all 4 substats with percentages and speed. So slot 5 tends to have the highest potential efficiency. And so we might hold our slot 5 to a slightly higher standard, but generally speaking, 1, 3, and 5, we're all going to be looking for about the same. The other thing is, and I started to mention this before, I want to make sure that I have at least 2 to 3 runes of every type in every slot, because sometimes it's worth taking a lower percentage rune if that's what you need to complete a set. A quick note on sets. A lot of people use a lot of broken sets, and I try to use almost no broken sets. I think I might have 2 broken set monsters total right now. Something to remember, besides the fact that set bonuses are kind of like bonus efficiency, is that every time you break a set, you're basically breaking another set. So for example, let's say you have this great violent rune. It's like a 28 speed HP slot 6 rune, phenomenal rune. And you put it on your Bastet as a broken set because it's your fastest slot 6. But keep in mind that a 28 speed slot 6 violent rune is really hard to come by. And so now that's one less monster that you can put into a good 4 set, basically. And so you're breaking another set by breaking the set on Bastet. Take it down to something a little bit more reasonable. Let's say it's a 24 speed Swift slot 6 rune, and you put it as a broken set on your Lauren, when your other alternative was to do like a 22 speed Revenge rune where you could have a complete set or something. You've given your Lauren 2 extra speed, and if you specifically needed that 2 speed because you had to speed tune, then it makes sense. But if you're just trying to cram 2 extra speed onto Lauren, that 24 speed Swift rune could have made an entire another great set for an Orion or a Draco or a Daphnis or something. Probably wouldn't have Daphnis on HP, but you get my point. That means we want to keep at least 2 or 3 runes of minimum of every type, even if it does mean that those runes are going to be lower efficiency than our targets. We also keep pretty much any quad roll, unless it's like just a total trash rune, or it's like, let's say you quad roll resistance, but it's +4 each time, then of course you don't keep it. But any quad roll, speed is a given, but any quad roll of a percentage-based grindable stat, any quad roll of crit rate or crit damage, I will almost always keep, even if the rune doesn't look like it's got an immediate use, because you never know when it would fit well into a set down the road. So, as I've mentioned, I just start with each rune set, and we start with energy, because if you look in the upper right, energy is the first thing in the list, and we go to our slot 1. And then in our optimizer, we go energy, slot 1. So we have our energy here, our slot 1, and our inventory. And then we're going to sort by efficiency. And then we're going to look at our bottom rune. And immediately we see that we've got a 73% rune against all these other 93s. And so we're going to ask ourselves, should we keep this rune? Well, this rune is not grinded, and it's not gemmed. So we could do this one of 2 ways. We could do it, if you've watched, I mentioned the potential video and the hits video, we could just do a quick calculation of hits. Now, if you want to do it, if you don't want to do all the complicated math, we could just go in here also and edit this rune in the very top. So now we're going to come up here and we're going to change this HP flat to attack %, and we're going to call it 16. We're going to call our HP 14. And we're going to call our speed 18. So that's all max hero grinds. And I'm going to double click on save current. And now all of a sudden it's a 96% rune. So we can see it's actually not our worst rune. It's actually not our slowest rune. It just happened to be ungrinded. On the other hand, this rune down here is our slowest rune, and it's about our lowest efficiency. So we're going to ask ourselves, do we want to keep this one? And we see that it's got 15 crit rate and 15 crit damage and 19 attack. It's a great offensive rune that could fit on lots of PvE options, so we do. So overall, I've got 5 runes, which is, I can't remember if I mentioned, but my target is to get down to 7 runes per slot in the 1-3-5 slot. Sometimes in the 2-4-6, I'll keep more than 7 if they're high quality. But I want to be between 3 and 7 runes in every slot. So overall, I've got 5 runes, which is between my 3 and my 7. They're all over that 93% range I said I was targeting. I kind of wanted to be at about 95 for energy, but because I don't have too many, they're fine. So then I would move on to my next. So I would come back up here. I go energy slot 2. I resort by efficiency. And we can see I've got some crappier runes here that I'll probably sell. This would be my normal process. So I would just go energy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From there I go to guard. And then I match up again in the optimizer here on guard as well. Now, I'm going to go over to violent. In my normal process, I would go one by one through all of it. But in violent, as you can see, I have a crap ton of runes. Like everybody else, I farm and keep a lot of violent. But as you can see, violent, my runes are mostly ungrinded. Where in pretty much every other set, all my runes are grinded. Because I have so many violent runes. A lot of them are ungrinded and ungemmed. And so then I can't put them on monsters until they're grinded and gemmed because the efficiency is too low, or not just efficiency number, but because they don't give me the stats that I need for my stage of the game. So as a result, I have 14 slot 1 violence. You know, you don't need to have me count. You can see them right up in the top. So as we look through them, the one place that I'm truly imbalanced is slot 1, and the other place that I'm a little overbalanced is slot 3. And so I want to clean these runes up, and particularly when I'm trying to gem or grind, it's really hard to figure out which runes to put it on because I have so many options. And because violent grinds drop pretty infrequently in raid, it's not like I can go customize one rune at a time. You know, you have to try and find the right place to put a rune or a gem, and to put a grind or a gem, and it becomes complicated. So I want to thin this out a little bit, get rid of some of the stuff that's kind of crappy. So I'm going to start off by sorting by speed, and I'm going to take a look at my slowest runes as opposed to efficiency, because I know I'm going to be trying to sell at least 5 to 7 runes, and so for the most part I want to sell the slowest ones. This one on the bottom, it's an 84% rune. The accuracy cannot be grinded. And it's got 13 crit rate. 13 crit rate, 9 crit damage, plus attack percent tells me that it's set up for a PvE monster. So now, I'm going to look at everything above it and see if I have any other rune that can do kind of the same thing but better. So we're going to resort here by crit rate, and we're going to see that really this rune right here, if I were to gem the crit damage and grind the attack, would be a better version of that other rune. It's trading speed for accuracy, but overall it's a better version of this other rune. This one here, which in theory I could just gem the HP for crit damage and also make a better version of that rune, or I could gem the low speed for crit damage and make a better version of that rune. And then this one I would have to actually gem the resistance for attack, so it's not a comparable rune, but it's still a high crit rate rune. So basically I'm seeing I've got a lot of runes that all kind of meet that same concept of heavy offensive rune. The question is, which one is best? Having 13 crit rate, 9 crit damage, and 14 attack is probably not quite as good as, let's say, 14 crit rate, 8 crit damage, and 22 attack. So this rune to me is not as good of a rune, and I'll go ahead and sell it. Now that's one example, and what I'm trying to express here, it's kind of tricky to express this through a video. What I'm trying to express is I'm looking for runes that are similar to each other. So I found 3 different runes that, even though they're not similar at the moment, they will be similar after they've been gemmed and grinded by kind of visualizing what I could do with that rune. So for example, we said this rune up here, I could gem the speed, which you usually don't want to do. But just as an example, if I gem the speed to crit damage and I landed 8 crit damage on it, and then this rune down here, if I just simply regem the crit damage and I landed 8 crit damage on it, and then I happened to grind the attack and I landed a max attack on this one, and I grind the attack and I land a max attack on this one. Now take a look at these top 3 runes, which are kind of similar. We've got 22 attack and 8 crit damage. We've got 14 attack and 9 crit damage. Or we've got 18 attack and 8 crit damage. They all have similar crit rate. Only one of them has accuracy, where one has speed and one has HP. That's the main difference, is the HP versus the accuracy versus the speed. The other thing is, as I look at these efficiency numbers, and again, efficiency is not the be-all, end-all, but efficiency is a guide to just how much stuff is on that rune and how much it does and what quality the rune is. So I see this rune is a 90% efficiency, and I can still grind the speed. Remember, I fake grinded the attack already. So this rune will get to about 94%, 95%. This rune cannot be grinded at all. It's capped at 85. And then this rune up here, I could also grind the HP, so this one will actually get to 96%. So this 85% rune, it just offers me less efficiency, less stats, and I have other runes that do pretty much the same thing minus the accuracy. That's this one, so we go ahead and sell that rune. And now we're down to 13 runes. And so we go through this process. It's a long process when you have a lot of runes that are similar. The other thing I can do is sort by efficiency and look down here at the bottom. So for example, this rune down here, I see I've got HP and speed, which are grindable. The resistance and the crit rate are not easily gemmable. And I could gem the crit rate, but then that makes it, if the rune doesn't have crit rate, then it becomes more specific of a support monster type rune. And for a support monster type rune, 16, 17 speed is probably going to be kind of slow. So I'm going to go ahead and now sort by speed and see how I compare with other speed runes. And I see I've got 20, 19, because remember we're thinking that we're going to grind them before we use them. So I've got 20, I've got 19, I've got 16, 16. And so that's telling me right now, this rune down here, which is going to cap at 16, 17 speed, is not special. I've got lots of other runes that do that. From there, we're going to go ahead and look at how it compares in terms of other runes and what their ceilings are. And basically, we're going to try and find like the 3 or 4 runes most similar to it. We'll keep the fastest of those runes, and then if the speed is equal, we'll keep the most efficient of those runes. Efficiency is a very important number. Speed is a more important number, but neither of those are the be-all, end-all. If I had a Violent 1 rune that was 30 speed, but then it had 5% attack and 16 flat attack and 16 flat defense, I would find a place to use it, absolutely, because it's a 30 speed rune and that's freaking insane. But it would be usable for a lot less monster types than if I had a rune that was, for example, 26 speed on a triple roll, but it also had 6 crit rate, 16 HP, and 8 attack. And so that's basically what we're trying to do. We know we have too many runes that are similar. So we're trying to visualize what the runes will all look like after they've been gemmed and grinded. And then we're finding the runes that are similar to each other, and we're using speed and efficiency as the tiebreaker between those runes, and then selling the ones that are not quite as good. By the time we're done, hopefully we're going to be down to 7 to 10 runes that offer me all different types. I'm going to have fast runes, I'm going to have high crit rate PvE runes, and I'm going to have high efficiency runes that are good for support monsters. And that way I've got like a broad variety of runes, but I've only got 7 to 10 runes to deal with. They are basically my 7 to 10 best out of this bunch, and that allows me to focus my grinds and gems on fewer runes to build them up to be higher quality runes instead of getting it so spread out. Now let's take a look at, I think I had a bunch of slot 2s. So we'll take a look at, to start off with, this bottom Violent 2 speed. It's 72% efficiency. We've got 2 grindable stats, which means it can only grow to 86% efficiency, which for me is just going to be too low. The only thing is I have no other speed runes right now if we look by type. So I am going to keep it because I've always got to have at least 1 rune of each type in case that's what I need to build a set. What I have a lot of here is attack and defense. Now defense is the slot 2 rune I'm least likely to use. And so for me, I'd be fine with selling either of these 2 runes if one of them was not good. Okay, so that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if I was clear with this. Let me know if there's something you'd like me to explain better or differently in a future video. I find that really helpful when you guys let me know. And other than that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, please pop that subscribe button over on the left. It shows me that you enjoyed the video, but more importantly, it shows me that you found the information useful and hopefully it helped you in your gameplay. So here's the deal. You pop subscribe and I'll keep popping out content. Thanks guys.